There's just so much.
You're listening to a Mamamia podcast.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of land and waters that this podcast is recorded on.
If you're missing your weekly Out Loud routine over the break, we wanted to let you know that we are still dropping episodes for Mamamia subscribers. So you can get full access to Out Loud, including the back catalogue of over 150 subscriber-only episodes. Subscribe to Mamamia via the link in the episode description.
Hello, Out Louders. It's Mia, Freedman. Holly, Jessie and I are currently on our summer break. We really are. And while we're off, we thought we'd revisit some of our favourite conversations and topics from 2023 because there were a heap of them. We hope you enjoy this best of episode of Mamamia Out Loud.
If you're kicking professional goals, literally in some cases, and you're also a parent, should you get extra credit? Is your parental status even a little bit relevant to your work life? A commentator made this comment about the brilliant Katrina Gorry, who's known as Minnie by all Matilda's fans, in the game against Ireland.
And the smile says it all from Katrina Gorry. Well, certainly motherhood has not blunted her competitive instincts, that's for sure.
That comment really pissed a few people off. What? We don't think mothers are competitive and aggressive? Has David Bashir ever met a mother? I wanted to ask. But also, it started people talking about whether the fact that Minnie is a mother is relevant at all. Certainly her mission to get back into Matilda's jersey after having her baby Harper, who's nearly 2 now, has been quite a big part of her narrative. Like, it's part of the Matilda's documentary and it forms quite a big storyline in interviews and, you know, lots of press around the Matildas. Virginia Tapscott wrote on Mamamia about that. She wrote, "A mother returning to elite soccer less than 2 years after giving birth isn't just noteworthy, it's impossible to ignore. It's an incredible physical feat that no man will ever lay claim to. If we want to see mothers crushing stereotypes, if we want to increase the visibility of motherhood, if we want to empower mothers, we must allow sports commentators to give credit where it's due." And I agree with that, I think, right? Broadly. But then another story about an incredible woman made me question myself a bit. After seeing the Barbie movie, as everybody did, I went on the inevitable Google afterwards and I discovered that its creator, Greta Gerwig, has a 4-month-old baby, as well as a 4-year-old, 2 boys. Which means, by any calculation, that Gerwig was pregnant and then a new mum during what must have been unquestionably the most intense work period of her life. Danielle Cohen wrote in The Cut, "Am I to understand that while Gerwig's mind was hard at work germinating the Barbie movie, her body was creating a whole-ass newborn child? Are you telling me that Gerwig is the living embodiment of having it all, proof that women can do anything we put our minds to, a walking, talking, birthing manifestation of the feminist Barbie ethos?" Woo! In fact, Gerwig had her last baby just when she brought out Little Women. I want to know what we think about this. Is it relevant that Greta Gerwig is a mother at the top of her professional game? Is it relevant that Minnie is a mother as she plays for the Matildas?
Of course it's relevant. I found myself doing something I'm not proud of when I found out that Greta Gerwig had a 3-month-old. My first reaction was, oh, she's just been on that global press tour. I wonder if she left the baby at home. Maybe that's unfair. Maybe it's not unfair. But then my next thought was I felt really sad for her, which is a ridiculous thing to say about the most successful director on the planet in this moment who has broken all box office records. There are times when the greatest opportunities of your professional life do coincide with really important moments in the rest of your life. And of course she had to lean into this now. And why would you not want to? Going and making sure that this movie is a success is very important. She's been heavily invested in it for, many years now. And it's just a case of really difficult timing because I loved that sort of immersion in the baby bubble of those few months, and she's not been able to do that. And I don't think she needs a tiny violin, but I think it's worth acknowledging that that is incredibly difficult, and it is more difficult than just getting on a plane or leaning into your work or when you don't have a baby or…
We don't know exactly what that balance has looked like. Like, as you say, Holly, she was pregnant while she was working on this project, but you can imagine that the way that this whole process works is that it's all filmed and then she's pregnant perhaps when all the edit, like obviously she's the director, so she's still working on it.
She'd be involved in
But-
every element of this.
Yes.
And the other interesting point to make is that her partner, Noah Baumbach, also works with her. So they're kind of both working on the movie and the baby at the same time, I guess.
Yes, but I was initially disappointed, and I said it on this podcast, in the commentary from David Bashir about Katrina Gorry. My instant reaction was, I don't know why motherhood would blunt someone's competitive instincts, and I've never heard that said about Federer, for example, when he's on the tennis court.
Oh, but I just don't think that's fair. Like, we've got to stop pretending the experience of being a mother and giving birth is the same as being a father. It's not the same.
And that's what I thought when I read Virginia Tapscott's article. There was an excellent article in Women's Agenda basically arguing if we don't acknowledge the toll that motherhood takes on a woman physically and emotionally, aren't we just erasing women's experiences and denying our challenges? And interestingly, when I did start to read more about it, Gorry's teammates have acknowledged how she has undergone a transformation since having her baby and coming back to the sport. The Matilda's vice captain said she came back from her pregnancy levels and levels ahead of the player she was before. You just don't ever expect that to happen. And I think as somebody who hasn't had a baby, I think that's a really important narrative to know, that for people who haven't had kids yet, your best years physically, professionally, socially can be post-kids. And we're seeing that with Katrina Gorry, and we're seeing with Greta Gerwig that it can be mid-kids.
I think these are two very different things, right? There is no question that sports people whose body is literally their tool, coming back from something so physically demanding and all-consuming, and as Virginia Tapscott made the point in the article, your bones are moving, literally. You know, like, we completely dismiss, and rightly so, have kind of put out of fashion the idea of bouncing back after a baby. Of course you're not. But for these women, getting back to a competitive level to play sport in the highest elite level in the world is an extraordinary feat. And I'm all for, like, clap, clap, clap. But why am I so interested and impressed to know that Greta Gerwig had a baby? She's not a professional sports person. She didn't have to, like, train back to an amazing level. I think it's interesting information, but I worry about us making it really relevant information.
I think it's relevant because she's given birth to her second child, and it seems a similar thing with her first child, at the peak of her career. Like, no one has ever been more aware of the name Greta Gerwig. She's never had more power in her entire career or more success. And the fact that she's probably, you know, either breastfeeding or caring for a newborn, has just given birth, I think that is really interesting. And I think that I've always pushed back, and I know you have too, Holly, on the narrative of bouncing back. And so I think that it makes me have even more esteem for her.
I'm a little bit hashtag not all mothers about it, though, because I also worry about us lionizing and putting on pedestals women who do push through.
Yeah.
It's like, remember,
like, Jessie Stevens, if you're listening, what have you done?
That's what I mean. And like
In the last 3
remember,
weeks.
remember that thing about, like, Roxy Jasenko was sending emails 2 minutes after her baby was born. I remember reading that Elle Macpherson was doing sit-ups, like, in the maternity room.
That's true.
And I think that it's very important to note that not all mothers are or should be in the head or body space to be straight back to working at the top of the game the minute they pop out a baby. Some people need, and they also don't have the level of support that someone like a Greta Gerwig would obviously have. So I don't want us to lionize and erase. Like, this is what's interesting about this, is we're saying we don't want to erase motherhood in terms of recognizing what an amazing feat it is for Katrina Gorry or Lydia Lassie or whoever to come back from carrying a baby. But we do kind of want to erase motherhood, because having a baby should not make you pause your career in any way.
Oh, no, it should. And let me be clear, as I said at the start, I feel sorry for her. Like, I don't go, wow, she's got a baby and this thing. Like, I can guarantee that there have been a lot of tears behind the scenes and a lot of angst and a lot of guilt and a lot of really difficult decisions and a lot of things she's missed out on by flying around the world and promoting this film and doing all the press that she has to do. I don't envy her at all.
Does it put pressure on you, Claire Stevens, as a woman who hasn't had a baby yet? Do you go, oh my God, I don't have any excuse to pause if a Greta Gerwig can keep pushing through?
Well, two things. One, I think we should be able to celebrate how new this is and the fact that it wasn't that long ago that when you had a baby, you left the workforce. Like that was just
Not
the
everybody
assumption.
did. Always putting my hand up. # not all women.
No. But like, for example, my grandmother's generation and before, like the idea was you didn't come back. And there are a lot of employers.
If you worked in the public service,
know.
you were
Yeah.
often not allowed to
I
have
know.
jobs like teaching after you got married. You know,
I
it was-
know, but
Exactly.
as I will always say,
Yes.
working class mothers have
Yep.
always worked.
Yes, but there were significant disadvantages professionally to having a child.
Yep.
And this is quite inspirational in that some of those barriers have been overcome. However, my reason for being a bit cautious about this, and I think this was my gut instinct when I heard the Katrina Gorry comment, are we saying that certain accomplishments are more exceptional because they're accomplished by a mother? And then where does that leave people who don't have kids or choose not
do
to have
I
kids?
get
or
extra points for making it into I mean, not so much now, but when my kids were tiny, do I get extra points at work because I made it into the office, even though I also, before I did that, fed
Yes.
2 children, dressed 2
Yes.
children, dropped them off at daycare,
Yes.
But do I though?
Yes.
But then how about women who are struggling to conceive or
But-
who
but-
choose
but-
not to have children?
but-
and it's like, so are their accomplishments not as exciting because they're not also doing this other thing?
No, but I think that it is empirically true that it is more challenging to get to work when you have to do a whole other job before you get there. It doesn't mean that people who don't have children have no other problems and have no other things that are difficult in their life and live a charmed existence and can't be stressed also in the morning. I think it's really unfair to have that work be invisible and unacknowledged. It doesn't necessarily mean you get a free pass, but I don't think it costs us anything to go, that was hard. And I know from experience, back to the competitive instinct, most of us aren't professional athletes, but I know that I lost my ambition completely after I had each of my babies for a period of time. So his observation that, her competitive instinct hasn't been blunted, well, for me, that was true because
Yeah.
ambition is similar to being competitive.
I know, but
Not true for everyone, but it's
I
true for
also
me.
know lots of women, and myself included in this, who was more ambitious after having children rather than less. Because I don't
How
mean in
long
that. No, I
after?
don't mean in that. You always talk about that just very specific breastfeeding
Yeah.
phase, but I mean in general.
Mhm.
Because, and this is what I was talking to someone in our office about yesterday. You're like, if I'm leaving my family, if I'm doing all these things, it's got to be worth it. It's got to be great. It's got to be something I really want to do. And it often is a point where, and I think Katrina Gorry kind of talks about that, is that it's got to be something I really want to do.
Yeah, that's one
You know?
one
So it's
reading
pushing
of
you.
ambition. My interpretation is more some people don't want to work at all after they have a
course.
baby.
A lot of my friends who have little babies have said there is something it awakens in you, like a new level of power or
Yeah.
fierceness or I don't give a fuck
Mm.
that happens when you become a mother because you're like, I just pushed a baby out of my vag or it got taken out of my stomach
Yeah.
and I can freaking do anything. And I wonder if in that way women can be galvanized by having a baby and therefore become more competitive.
Let us know what you think Out Louders. Leave us a voice note or send us an email. You know where we are. We're on the Out Louders Facebook group or we're on outloud@mamamia.com.au.
Writer Chiquita Searle wrote about ego and how having a healthy one is something that more women should do. She wrote, "Humble is a word that's never been used to describe me. In fact, I remember distinctly my paternal grandmother telling me once that I could benefit from a little more humility. I humbly declined. Therefore, it may surprise no one that the word humble doesn't feature in my vocabulary, and I will also go so far as to say that I don't believe in being humble at all. In my humble opinion, being modestly demurring doesn't serve anyone, particularly women." Chiquita went on in her piece to make the point that women are culturally conditioned to make ourselves smaller and how being up yourself is a slur that's only ever used against women, never men, which is true. Used to be something that was said a lot at school, but never to boys. She also said that being humble negatively affects women because it stops us from doing things like putting our hands up for promotions or applying for jobs or taking healthy risks or advocating for ourselves in all kinds of situations. And then she set up the idea that the opposite of being humble is having a big ego. And she lists her top tips for cultivating your ego. Are you ready?
Yes.
First of all, how do you feel about not being humble? It's so funny. I think humility is such an important value.
Same.
Well, you're from Manchester, so of course you do.
Of course I do. But it's interesting because we discuss this all the time, that it's true that women are really bad at asking for what they deserve in all kinds of situations, not just a work situation, but a relationship situation or a friendship situation or, boundaries, as we've discussed many times. And that's all true. And I very much struggle with that too. But the idea that ego is good is so opposite to my value system that has clearly been beaten into me from a young age that I find it really hard to make that switch.
But I'm going to argue against myself now and in favour of what Chiquita's saying. What it's meant is that women aren't allowed to be proud of things. We have to couch our ego in terms of, or our pride, and ego is such a negative word. So I just want to talk about it as confidence, because I think that's a little bit more of what she's talking about. We have to couch it in terms of #gratitude or #lucky.
Yeah.
I'm so lucky.
I want to bring back the gratitude and the lucky, and I reckon we've gone too far the other way. I don't think ego is the word she means. Other things that could be interchangeable are confidence.
Self-confidence.
But my ego is something that gives me far more unpleasant feelings than pleasant feelings.
But is that because of your conditioning? Because that's what I was thinking. I was thinking we all have ego, right? I definitely have ego. And there's no question that I do. But I feel very guilty about my ego.
Shame. I feel shame.
But the more you
is that my conditioning, or is that because in and of itself it's a bad thing?
Ego is something that is like an illness of the modern age, I think. Like, ego is something that the better you are at putting it to the side, at acknowledging when it pops up and says things to you, putting it to the side and ignoring it, I think is when we're more enlightened. The idea that we are part of something greater, I think ego puts us in a position of superiority or inferiority to others, which is never healthy. So one of the things in the article she says is the compliments journal.
Okay, so yes, I'll get back to her tips, right? She's got tips for cultivating your ego. And the first one, which we can't really get past, is start a compliments journal. She says every time someone compliments you, make sure you record it. The physical act of writing it down will stop your self-deprecating deflection.
See,
apparently this is a real thing. Like, it's very much encouraged for young women in the workplace too, to remind themselves that they're good and they're worthy and they should be there.
This is like a participation award that you're giving yourself.
Yeah. Yes. And the problem with that is that if you're going to take stock and put value into every compliment that people give you, are you going to do the same with the reverse?
Yes, I get that. But if we think that women often suffer more from insecurity and imposter syndrome, for example, this actually happened to me. It's like whenever I'm writing, very often when I'm writing, I get gripped by imposter syndrome and insecurity and I struggle. And a friend of mine said to me, go and read all the good things someone has said about your book. Go and read them and remind yourself that you're good and you can write and you can do it. And of course I didn't, because in order to go there, I would also have to read the bad ones. That's Jessie's face is like, oh. But it's not terrible advice, because when you're gripped with insecurity, can't even do this, I'm a terrible person, whatever it is, then reminding yourself that you've done it before and that people thought you were good at it is not a bad thing to do. But why does it feel like really up yourself?
But then because you're also taking so much value from what others think, which I know when you're performing or when you're putting anything out there, that can feel like a good thing. But this is my worry, that what we're doing in the workplace is adopting the behaviors and some of the things that men do because men do them and they seem to get ahead without interrogating whether they're actually good for us or not. I don't know if workplaces need more ego.
This isn't specifically at work. This is just in life.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So there's another list that you can make, Jessie, is a list of what you're good at. She says make a list and add to it regularly. She also says champion yourself. If you're good at something, wholeheartedly own it. Tell people, be your own biggest advocate. This one I think is quite interesting, catch and reframe. She says if something doesn't go your way, don't allow yourself to spiral. Catch the story early before it takes hold, like as a narrative, and reframe it so there's a learning, a positive, or a key takeaway that is of use to you.
And they're both ego, right? Like the spiraling, going, I am a piece of shit, is also your ego. So that's what I mean, is that I don't know if engaging with it is even the right way to sort of approach it. She says in this article that ego is a resilience muscle. The bigger it is, the more rejection we can withstand. completely disagree. People with massive egos do not deal with failure well.
Fragile.
They're very
Donald
fragile.
Trump. Yes.
They can't handle the rejection because they don't learn anything from it, because they think they're amazing, because they're going, what's wrong with the world? I have all my compliments. I'm actually great. I'm not going to take anything from this failure.
Yeah, that's true. And we all have been in the presence, and I mean, we're generalizing in gender, but like of men with massive egos who just don't take like criticism or negative feedback over anything is just water off a duck's back constantly. But again, is this a correction? Because I was thinking about this morning on my way in. I was reading obituaries for Martin Amis, who's a very, very, very famous British writer who's just died. And every single one of these obits said he had extraordinary confidence. Like he had confidence that he was a brilliant writer from a young man. That's because he was a very posh white man who was a brilliant writer, but also had a dad who was a writer, who was at all the tables, was at all the important places. So he was born with that level of ego and entitlement and confidence. And he did write some amazing things, good on you, Martin, etc. But that's very different for a woman or someone from a different socioeconomic background or someone of color or all those different things, where you are never going to sit at that table with the bigwigs, whatever context that's in, whether that's work or private life or anything, and feel confident. You have to actually work at it. And that's what she's talking about. She's talking about trying to build, you know, the cliche of go in with the confidence of a mediocre white man. She's got to build it. Whereas the Martin Amises of the world, they already have it.
Yes, but where does a sense and an understanding of privilege sit alongside ego? So if I'm a white woman who's sitting on this podcast, I can go two ways. I can go, I work hard, I like sitting here, it's fun, I'll do my best, whatever. The ego would tell me that I'm better than a lot of people and I earned my way here, and I did that because I'm amazing and because I have some natural ability. I don't think that second way is a healthy way to view our lives, and that's where a little bit of luck comes in.
And humility.
And
luck
blessed.
and privilege and all those things. But you also do work extraordinarily hard and you also are good at it. So like, how do you turn the dial just enough but not too much?
Yeah, I think you put ego to the side and you look at determination and hard work and self-confidence. But I think if you put too much stock into the greatness of yourself being responsible for anything, there's going to be a steep fall.
Attention people with hair, stop being dicks. That was the theme of a controversial list of etiquette rules of toxic mistakes we make at the hairdressers that went a bit nuts on Mamamia. And I need to know which of these you're all guilty of, because straight up, number one, I've done it. So
I reckon I've done nearly every single one.
So from a crowdsource of hairdressers, some very brilliant, very funny rules about what annoying customers do. Number one is probably the one that we have all done, bringing in an unrealistic photograph.
Okay, I'm going to defend this. It is your job as a hairdresser, who is the expert, to tell me it's not possible. I don't go in demanding anything. I go in ready to have a conversation with an expert. So it's sort of like when I go in to get a facial and I say, can you please remove my fine lines and make my skin dewy and young, and they have to go, let's give you a clean, because they know that like whatever I'm asking for is like, if I think it's possible to go from black to blonde or whatever, then like just talk to me.
I showed a hairdresser a picture on my phone a few years ago of a haircut that I liked, and it was on Lara Bingle. And I will never forget the look on his face, and he just went, oh, doll. I was like, no, don't get me wrong, like all the justifications that a woman does. I know I don't look like Lara Bingle, and I know she's a lot younger than me, and I know she's a lot cooler than me. But
we're rejecting this. We're putting it back on the hairdressers. If our photo is unrealistic, it is your job to help bridge that gap. Okay, what's the next one?
Here's a good one. Taking sneaky pics for your Instagram. I've totally done that too. The hairdressers in this said, tell us, because we know. So like, don't just get your phone out and take a few sneaky mirror pictures of like, this is me before, this is me after, in it. Like, don't be apologetic about it. Just say, I'm going to take some pictures or film for my socials. Are you comfortable with that?
Isn't that great promo for your salon?
Yeah.
I'll just say tag me.
I think their point is, I don't
want to be in the shop.
Maybe I've got a double chin. Maybe I'm in witness protection. Who knows?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't take a picture of someone without their permission. I'm even worse, but I do ask. I'm like,
let's make a video.
Oh my
I'm going to
God.
interview you. And they're like, oh, but I can't. And I'm like, come on, let's just do it.
Yeah. Telling your new hairdresser that no other hairdresser has ever understood what you want.
Yeah.
I love this. This is like when you go to a job interview, do not slag off your boss, your
No.
current boss.
No.
Never, ever do it.
They've
But-
always expected too much of me.
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
exactly. The hairdressers say that if you go in and you say, no hairdresser's ever really understood my hair, they're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
This is a
I'm
red
not
alert.
I'm not gonna understand it.
See, again, I think that's helpful information for the hairdresser to know,
Right.
which basically means
I'm
oh,
a nightmare.
No, you're a nightmare. I better be very careful, proceed with caution. I think, again, I reject that. I think that's helpful.
Saying, I just want a haircut. Now, I have definitely been guilty of this. The people who always say whatever you think would look good are annoying. I always do
Oh
that.
my God, I thought
Oh,
I was
me
giving,
too.
I thought that was a compliment because
I
I'm
know.
saying I trust you.
People say, do you want layers? Do you want this and that? And I'm like, I don't know. What do you think? That's my position.
I
And they
don't-
apparently don't do that.
I reject this too because I'm like, I'm not a hairdresser. When they say layers, I don't know. I think of Princess Diana flicks.
My best haircuts are when a
speak
hairdresser
words.
has just taken a moment and gone, I think I know what I'm going to do. And they just do something great. I'm like, whatever I ask for is wrong. It is 3 years old and it won't suit me. So why don't we just, you do your thing?
You use your expertise. This one is good. Showing up late to an appointment with a coffee in your hand.
Well, it's a long appointment.
Oh.
because you're like, I'm running 15 minutes late.
But I did wait for a
I did
coffee.
wait for a coffee.
I feel shame when I do it, but I do it.
They make me coffee at my salon.
oh, even
well-
better.
And
And
I get a little bickies.
arriving with dirty hair.
Okay. All right, how dirty? Because you're going to wash it.
Yeah.
So
That's my thing is I'm like, I knew you were going to wash my hair, so I didn't wash
Oh,
my hair.
I'm the opposite because I find hairdressers just take it's not their fault, but going to the hairdresser takes too long. I will always wash my hair and have no product in it just to speed things up.
So do you turn up with wet hair?
Air dried hair always.
Do you let them wash
Yeah.
it again?
No, because they don't need to, so it's faster.
No, see, when I get my blonde done, they do need to wash it. at the
Before?
end. No, they wash it. So they do the
Oh,
foils
no,
or
of
whatever.
course. But I mean, I assume that if I turn up with dirty hair, the dye that they're going to put into my hair will not take because I've got product or I've got grease or whatever.
I'm there for the hair wash.
Yeah,
I
that's
really
my
want the
favourite
hair
part.
wash.
At the beginning, before they colour
Yeah.
your hair.
I love that shit. Well, I don't get my hair coloured, but like I get my hair cut. I'm there for the hair wash and the scalp massage and their
That's
expensive
different.
conditioner.
I think it's a colour thing. Do you go with dirty hair for colour, Jessie?
Yeah, all the time. Like not like a week dirty and not like I just got out of the ocean, but I definitely didn't wash it today. That would be a waste of my own shampoo and conditioner, which
When
I buy from Woolworths.
they've got nicer shampoo and conditioner than me.
Exactly. They always tell me I wash my hair too much. So I'm like, well, here you go.
Tell us out louders, what sins are you committing and what else? What have we missed here?
All of them.
This whole modern etiquette thing, we need a series because we're all doing things wrong. We don't know how to live.
I had some for hairdressers. Just some feedback.
Go.
From hairdressers.
Go.
Don't tell me my hair's dead. Everyone's hair's dead. So that really annoys me.
It's the job of hair to be dead.
Also, don't, and this goes for any service, like beauty industry thing, if you for 3 hours tell me how bad my hair is, I won't go back. If I ask for product advice, which I do, then please give it to me. But the assumption that the average person can spend $50 on a shampoo is I just feel very alienated and I'm not going to do it.
Or a texture spray.
Yes. And then they give you a 10-step routine and go, you must do this, you must do that. And I'm like, okay, so for you in this moment, my hair, your number one priority. Love that. That's how it needs to be. When I walk out of here, my hair, 203 on the priority list. And I need you to know that.
I hear you.
That's smart.
That's all we have for today. And if you're missing us over the summer break, and frankly, who wouldn't be? I mean, I'm going to miss you both a lot. We are still releasing new episodes for our subscribers. So if you're interested and want to join us, follow the link in the show notes. And a big thank you to all our current subscribers.